Good morning, good afternoon. We are going to start our webinar soon. Thank you for joining. We see attendees joining in. We'll start in a moment shortly. All right, it's 12. Let's begin. Linda, Ember, let's go.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Linda. So we're going to start our webinar today. For those joining from East Coast, good afternoon. For folks joining in from Midwest, Mountain States, and Pacific, good morning to all of you. Today, we have a great agenda. We're going to talk about how capital owners are using data in their day-to-day business for capital projects. During our demo, we want to be able to walk through some live examples. Our panelists, our webinar speakers will share that. And also, they'll be sharing some real-life examples as an owner, how they're using data, how they're using technology and systems to move capital projects forward. Before we begin, some rules of engagement. You're all on mute status. Please use chat questions for comments, questions. If you're online, please tell us your name, where you're joining from today. This webinar is being recorded. You'll get a copy of the recording if you return after the call, maybe Monday. Try to answer as many questions as possible today, but if we do answer all of them, we would respond to it. Lastly, as a follow-up, you'll get a copy of this presentations after that. So those were the rules of engagement. A little bit about OnIndus. OnIndus is the host of this webinar. We are an advisory firm focused on construction and capital project. We work with many software providers, systems we support, Kahua, eBuilder, Procore, even Oracle, and many more. What we do, we help owners on project management assessment, implementing systems, and helping them in change management. Now let's get some introductions. So I'll begin. As I said, my name is Sid. I'm the president of OnIndus. At OnIndus, I'm focusing on innovation for our capital owner clients. And I'm always looking for new ideas, new ways of method, how to improve capital project outcomes. Let's introduce our first presenter, Linda Shilley.
Hi, good morning, Sid. Thank you. And hello to everybody. Welcome. My name is Linda Shilley. I am the procurement manager at Pierce Transit. Just a little bit about myself. I started working in the construction field back in the late 70s. I was working for the contractors on the construction sites for about 11 years. After that, I jumped the fence, came over to the public agency side, and I've been there ever since. I've been involved in a wide diversity of public projects, construction projects for major civil projects, bus procurements, bridges, vertical construction. I've utilized the design bid build process, the general contractor construction manager, otherwise known as GCCM, the job order contracting process, or JOC, unit price contracts, master contracts, open orders, all types of service agreements, professional, personal, and purchase services. And Amber?
Good morning, everyone. Super excited to be here. Share some of Pierce Transit successes and lessons learned. So hopefully you guys don't do what we did. My construction journey started maybe slightly different than some other people here. I actually came up through a school district that had a really strong trades program. So my journey actually started as a welder in the field. Actually started it in junior high. And by the time I was 16, I had already been welding for several years. So walked right into a job, really enjoyed it. I kind of knew that wasn't my end game though. So I actually caught the attention of a general contractor and he recruited me to come work for him. So he really liked my drive and enthusiasm. So I went to work with him as an estimator. So he was a general contractor, a civil contractor. So he specialized in underground utilities and excavation. So I worked hard, worked up through the ranks, played the role of project manager for quite some time. And by the time he was ready to retire, I was pretty much running the day-to-day operations. Most of our work consisted of DoD work on JBLM, or back then it was Fort Lewis. So when he retired, I went to work directly for a job contractor on Fort Lewis, JBLM. Just kind of furthered my federal contracting skills from there. At that point, I went to work for the public sector. So I jumped my fence, so to speak. And that's where I've been ever since too. So kind of interesting. I worked for 3 different public agencies. And we've actually implemented the same PMIS system at each one of those agencies. So kind of interesting. So thanks, Sid.
Thank you. You guys have an impressive story, especially women in leader and, 30, 40 years on this room. So I'm privileged to have you on this presentation today. Thank you for coming. Let's begin. So Linda, why don't you tell the team about, we have a lot of attendees. So tell us about Pierce Transit. Like what does this owner do?
Well, we provide public transportation throughout the Pierce Transit or Pierce County area over in Western Washington. We also travel up into King County, the county just to our north, which is where Seattle is located in King County. We're structured with 5 divisions. We've got Planning and Community Development Division, Finance and IT, Service and Delivery, Maintenance, and Administration Services. Each division has a handful of departments. And our financing, we're primarily financed by local sales tax. And we also collect passenger fares. We have external fundings, such as from the federal government. We do get state allocated grants. Sound Transit, which is a very large transit agency, primarily located in King County. We have a partnership with them. About 60% of our fleet are Sound Transit buses that Pierce Transit operators drive. And we also get, from our Department of Transportation, we get grants from there. We are a separate municipal corporation. We originally started out as part of the city of Tacoma, which is also in Pierce County, but now we are a separate municipal corporation. And we have 9 elected officials that serve on our board of commissioners.
Wow. Thank you. Let's dive in. So this webinar presentation, we're going to talk about a couple business areas. And one of my favorite is capital planning. As we owners have to do a lot of capital planning. So I want to begin with Linda. So Linda, as an owner, how does your team, how does Pierce Transit use data for capital planning? Share with the attendees and the audience here, please.
Well, you're going to see that throughout the presentation. We're using data extensively. In fact, when I was considering to apply for my position at Pierce Transit, I did a lot of research about Pierce Transit, and what I saw on their website was that it was a priority and a value of theirs that they use data for decision making. It said data-driven decisions, and that really attracted me to Pierce Transit. So you're going to see how the data that we collect and present in various formats really does lead to our goal setting, strategic planning, and decision making for capital planning. One of my primary responsibilities as procurement manager is to ensure that we conduct a fair, equitable, and ethical procurement process all the time, and to keep the bad news about Pierce Transit off the front page of the newspaper, and to keep our CEO out of jail. I'm also really focused on Pierce Transit being a good steward of public funds. So following policies and procedures is really essential to accomplishing those goals. Since we do have external funding from Sound Transit, the state and federal level, and we're governed by a lot of statutes, laws, our policies are very, very important, and the procedures that follow those. In accordance with our PMIS, our Project Management Information System, which is eBuilder, we develop user guidelines and procedures for all of our workflows that we develop.
Let's dive into a little bit more. Let's talk about the initiation of the capital planning. What does that mean, and how are you using technology?
So I'm a firm believer in that collaborative partnership with the project stakeholders in the beginning is essential to a successful project. So we're integrating our project management information system, which is eBuilder, with our financial system and our data warehouse to establish those relationships. It helps build trust, and it's transparency to all the project stakeholders. And we're able to provide useful statistics, reports, and dashboards with the data we're collecting. So what you're looking at right now is a workflow diagram. This shows the steps and actors required to request a capital project. So when they first have the concept, they want to request a capital project, and this is primarily used in the spring when we start developing our list of projects to be considered for the next year. It can also be used during the year for those off-cycle projects, those projects that come up as an idea throughout the year. So we have a committee called the POG, Project Owners Group. It's consisted primarily of division directors, and this group reviews every single capital project request and determines the priority through scoring. And then the outcome of the scoring determines which projects are included in the budget for board adoption. It also captures and tracks our out-year requests. Pierce Transit does maintain a 6-year plan that is presented to our board every fall for adoption. However, they're only approving or adopting the budget for the next year. So I'm going to go live into the system. I want to explain, this goes through all the steps and the actors really to just collect the data I'm going to show you and give these actors and these voting members of the POG the opportunity to see all of the information related to the project request. So bear with me one moment. Oh, I can't share screen. It says I'm prohibited from sharing screen.
Try.
All right. So let me get this up here. So we're real excited about this. This is a great process. This is, like I said, a capital project request. Anybody in the agency, it's typically division directors or department managers. We do have a whole planning department, but anybody in the agency can start this request. And the type of data it collects is the proposed project details, high-level details. The dates are important. A project overview, the type of request. A lot of these fields are drop-down menus. So this type of request would be a drop-down selection. It gives an overview of the description, the life expectancy. We are tracking these requests on how they support each one of our 5 strategic goals and how it aligns with that goal. We're giving the purpose, problem, opportunity, anticipated results. So just really trying to gather as much about the project as possible for those POG members to be able to decide whether it's a viable project and for it to move forward into the budget process. We're also collecting the project cost estimate. Again, this is at the very start of requesting the project, so it's a high-level project cost estimate. One thing I wanted to point out is we're also, even though this is capital project request, we're collecting the data for the operating costs, ongoing costs. Can we afford to support this new service or this new base or this new building and so forth in out years? Will it involve operating costs? Also, we're looking at the cost assumptions. Is there an opportunity for grant? Do we know of a grant opportunity? Would we like to try and look for a grant opportunity? And what the funding would look like? What are the impacts? What are the impacts on our resources? Do we have maintenance staff available to support this project? Are we going to require additional full-time employees? What are the project risks? And then this is a section if it's an out year, so not wanting to be in the very next budget cycle. And then it's collecting it's attaching the supporting documentation.
Love it. Moving over to Amber. What is this about? Talk to us.
So this really pretty dashboard here. This is actually imagined out of a collaboration between Pierce Transit and OnIndus. So the story kind of behind this, I was actually contacted by one of our senior planners. So he really saw the need for sharing a lot of this key information to a broader audience, not just those that are users in eBuilder. So not everybody has access to it, but we have external project partners such as, Sound Transit, City of Tacoma, and not to mention our board members. Our board members want some of this additional information of these projects, whether they're in our current capital plan or if they're an out-year project. So on top of that, he's also working very closely with being a senior planner, he's working really closely with grants. So they needed more information of what's current, what's on the horizon, what can they go look for grants for? They need some project information so that it gives them the opportunity to gather some information, know what these projects are, know what's on the horizon, so they can try to find other grant opportunities for us. So that's kind of why we have this. He wanted it formatted in a nice print type view. So very pleasing to the eye, very easy to read through. Anybody can pick this up and look through it. So it's made to be taken out of the system and distributed as needed. So knowing that we were already capturing all this data, we just needed another way to get it out. So I talked to OnIndus and asked for help and how else could we capture this data? So what we ended up doing is we got our PMIS system actually pushed out to Power BI by connecting it to our in-house data warehouse. So that then gave OnIndus the power to build this in our Power BI environment for us. So we flushed out all the details. We partnered with OnIndus. We got it looking the way it is now. End result, customers super happy. It's using it for what it needs to be used for. But due to popular demand, we actually decided to take it even further. So since we now had eBuilder connected to our data warehouse, our in-house data analytics team got super excited and built even more dashboards for us. So this was just really the start of an additional journey. So I'm actually going to go live into our Power BI here at Pierce Transit, and I'm going to show you what else we built. So this is.
You're not seeing it yet.
We're not seeing it.
It's coming.
Okay, good.
Can we see it?
All right, so this is this is actually the exact same data. It's pulling from the same place, but you'll see it's viewed a little differently. Again, this is our Power BI, our in-house Power BI. So it's not in our PMIS system anymore. So it's leveraging slightly different data fields. And this was built by user request. So it's pulling in the data that they really wanted to see. So it's slightly different than the print view of that previous report you saw, only for our internals in Power BI. So you can see in the middle of the page, it's really highlighting our strategic goal that it focuses and supports on. The bottom third is really dedicated to the costs. And it's also pulling in more text and adding discussion behind those numbers. And I also want to give a quick mention to, Linda mentioned it earlier, but the life expectancy. So up here, we've got, what are we currently expecting the life expectancy to be of this project or the asset that we're putting into service? I'll show you why that's kind of important later. Also, by popular user demand, a roll-up type report was requested, again, using that same data. So I'm going to show you another high-level BI report here. So this is our 7 year, so our what I call our current +6. So it's just that, it's just a roll-up report. Very high-level data. There's not a lot of data here, but it's another way of reviewing and gathering, depending upon what it is you're looking for. So it's just, it's organizing it by category in this view. So, and you'll see I'm going all the way out to 2029 in this view. So again, it's just a roll up. This one is a little more interactive than the ones we saw earlier. I do have some filters at the top of the screen. So again, it's just leveraging data a different way from the exact same process that Linda showed you. So pulling from one place, just leveraging it slightly differently.
So, thank you, Amber, for sharing different flavors. So just a quick recap, Linda started talking about an object, how we do capital planning, and then Amber flipped the switch, the data they've collected, how they're presenting and making decisions. So Amber, tell us a little bit of planning as well, like the whole planning scenario. How would you recap that?
So yeah, so Linda showed you the workflow. So that's where this data is first being captured into the system. That's its first introduction into the system. And you might know a little, you might know a lot. So you're filling out everything that you can in the moment. So from there, it's pulling that data and it's populating dashboards and reports throughout our project management system. And then it's also pushing it out to Power BI. So the really cool part, and the one that I probably get really excited about, most of us think of our current capital plans. They're worried about the now, which is great, but we can also leverage this to look out further. So let me show you how we're using that exact same workflow and data for some long-term planning. So I'm going to go back to my Power BI here and see if I can do a better job sharing this time. So this is the one. This is my absolutely favorite dashboard, and it's very silly to say that because it's also probably our most simple and honestly probably the most boring in aesthetics, to be honest. So right now we're looking at projects all the way out to 2040. So I honestly don't know if I'm going to be here in 2040, but it's coming whether I'm here or not, and we're going to plan for it. So remember I pointed out earlier that one little piece of data called useful life, or what's the life expectancy. So this is where we can really leverage that data further. When we finish a project or put some sort of asset in service or have some sort of idea or the expected or anticipated lifespan, we can now enter that same data into that workflow, knowing that, and start planning for it. So if we know that we have a roof that needs to be replaced in 15 years, we know the life expectancy is 15 years, we can add that project now into the workflow and we can start tracking it. So we can come in and edit that cost data every few years or as often as we want to make sure we're trying to stay pretty close with the current cost estimate. And of course, we know looking out 5 years is probably just a wag at this point, but it really allows us to stay on top of our asset life cycles and plan for those upcoming expenditures, especially if there is a possibility of grant or external funding. So it's just a way to kind of keep it on the horizon, keep it in front of eyes. It doesn't get lost or forgotten about. It's just a way to a quick view, and I can really see that we're going to be populating this report even more and more as we go along. So back
Thank
over to you, Sid.
Awesome. So we covered one area, which is capital planning. You know, what happens after capital planning? You have a project and you start contracting. So that's what she is expert on, along with capital planning. So question to you, Linda, at Pierce Transit, how are you leveraging data to manage contracts?
Well, now you got your capital project. Now it kind of comes into my lap at that point. Capital project's approved. We're ready to roll. We've got it set up in the systems, financial system, and the e-builder system. So now what's next? Well, what's next is you're going to need contracts. You're going to need your architect engineer to help assist with developing the plans and specs. You might need some interlocal agreements or some other type of agreements. People across the agency are thinking, oh, I need a contractor. I need to start buying the buses. I need a contractor to even repair the fence or replace the carpet. So what we put in place is a workflow called a procurement request process. Again, anybody in the agency can start this process by simply submitting a procurement request, and it flows through the correct actors, the step actors in the process, to review the scope of work and make a decision as to whether they're going to proceed, or rather that the procurement department needs to proceed with that procurement. So I want to go live into the system real quick and show you that form and the data that we collect throughout that process. So I am in eBuilder and I'm just showing the procurement request form. It's a pretty simple form, but it does collect enough information to get the right approvals for the procurement team to actually start initiating, whether it be a request for proposal, request for qualifications, maybe it's a public works bid effort. So this is just one that I have in my queue right now. And we're capturing, as this goes through the workflow, we're capturing the name and date of the approvers of this, so that when this ends, this whole process is complete, this is generated on a PDF for auditing purposes. We're capturing the document in eBuilder, and we can see who reviewed and approved this procurement. So the work somewhat at a high level may or may not already have an existing contract. This can be used for initiating a new procurement, or it could be used to amend an existing contract. And then I can add comments. Is there an existing contract? Yes, no. The requested start date. Is this a capital project? And a lot of these fields are drop down, so all of our capital projects are listed here. That helps with consistency for numbering for the text. It helps a lot in your reporting to have some consistency. If it's not capital, is it department cost center? So all of our departments are listed here, again, for the same reasons. Object code is just a part of our accounting string. And then again, we want to know up front, are we anticipating a grant? Have we received a grant? This is going to determine whether we, what I call, federalize our bid documents. Are we going to have to include all of the federal or state or grantors language in our bid documents as we develop the contract? Then when it gets to my step, I am helping to set a priority. The requester is also able to say yes, no, but I can change that. And then I'm determining what type of contract this is. This information is used to determine the procurement method. So as we all know, that depending on the type of contract, we've got, well, at least in Washington State, we've got different statutes for every type of procurement method and different rules. And then I pick one of the procurement team to assign this to. And then I can add comments to the procurement team member, the contract administrator, which is a role in eBuilder. So the collection of that data is the next step in the capital project development. Putting the contracts together.
Awesome. I'm gonna switch on to, so this is Amber. So Linda just showed how they're collecting the data with a lot of information, a lot of critical information to be gathered. Now, as an owner, how do you use that information? How does it help you?
So this is an example of just one of the dashboards that we use here at Pierce Transit. So we've actually got several dashboards in play. This is just an example of one. This happens to be a dashboard for the project management office. So we also call PMO. And this is a super high level, just a snapshot of a project manager's commitments across all of their projects. So this is only a portion. We do have other PMs. So this is only the top portion of that specific dashboard. But once the process that Linda showed is completed, and now we've actually got a contract in place, that contract data gets entered in our cost module in eBuilder. And that's where all this information is pulling from. So this specific one is organized by contractor or vendor, and it shows the current commitment value. And this is including any approved change orders, amendments. This is real-time data. And again, it's just organized by the vendor across all their projects. So if they do have multiple contracts with any of these vendors, this is a culmination, a roll-up, so to speak, of all those contracts across all those projects. Our project managers are very busy. They don't get just one project to work on. So there's a lot of coordination there. So this is, it only takes one click to access that information. So, and again, I'm talking real-time data here. So if we go just one click further, so I'm only one click deeper here, this is what I get. So by selecting Sean's portion of that dashboard, this is a report that's actually feeding that information to the dashboard. So this is one lower level look of the real-time data of current contracts. So information on this specific report includes the current contract amount, the balance available, the expiration date. It's also identifying the contract administrator that's assigned to that specific contract. If we want to go one more click further, we can continue to drill down to all the data contained in a digital contract file. So we're capturing the typical things, your change orders and their current status, because we have workflows for those, your invoice costs and the current status of those, the current retention held. We're even tracking our contractors' insurance expiration dates. We're tracking things like our board authorized contract amount. We do have to go for board approvals when certain thresholds are met. So we're making sure we track that and how that coincides with our change orders. So you'll also find all the digital files. So your contract documents, your change orders, your invoices, all that data is right at the click of just a mouse. It's all located in one place. So you can imagine there's no more digging through drives to try to find your most recent change order or invoice. There's no checking the math on Excel spreadsheets when you're questioning how much money you have left on a contract. You know what happens when a formula gets off or changed. So not only that, but the data is open to everyone. So we have roles in our system. Everybody gets an observer role. So you can go into any contract, any project, and see that data. Now, not everybody has edit rights. That's reserved for project managers and contract administrators. But it's really transparent and open to all. So it really helps make everyone very self-sufficient. And it's really as transparent as you can get. So I use this exact same data as a contract administrator. So I'm making sure that I'm doing my part to keep on top of these contracts. So additionally, we all have the ability to send automatic reports. So just like these that you're looking at, depending upon the type of data that you're wanting to track and capture, you can send those reports on any scheduled type of basis, whether it's daily, monthly, weekly. and they just show up in my email box. So I don't even have to ask for them. And it's a good reminder for me to do a check-in and do a quick monitoring of where things are at.
Great.
Thanks, Sid.
Thank you. Let's dig into now next. We talked about capital planning. We talked about contracts. The next focus area is about how do we use data to manage actuals and cash flow. And handing over to Linda. Linda, share us.
All right, so it's important to know when you're going to spend the money and how much you're going to spend each time. And typically during the course of a construction contract, it's on a monthly basis with your pay application. So I remember the days having done this for a while. One of my employers, I did have to keep up the Excel spreadsheet for cash flow. That was including every single capital project in an Excel sheet. And every time a payment was made, an invoice was approved, that had to be entered. And then I had to project out for the duration of the project and when the contract was expected to end, how much money we were going to spend on a monthly basis. And that took a lot of time, a lot of labor every month to do that. But we had a finance director who invested money. He would do like 30, 60, 90-day CDs. He would do longer investments. So it was really important that he received that cash flow projection. And I can't believe how far technology's come. I am so grateful because now cash flow updating is literally just 2 or 3 clicks of your mouse. It's updated with every time a pay estimate is approved in the system. The PM manager, the project manager is required on a monthly basis to update the health of the capital project. So they will go into the system and they'll update the schedule, the cash flow. They update their projections if they have projected costs. They update the funding and the budget if required. They also provide a narrative on the status of the project. And this all goes to our project management office manager. And she is able to produce a monthly report for the executive team and a quarterly report for our board on basically what I call the project health of all of our capital projects. What you're seeing on the screen now is an example of a cash flow chart, and it goes out, you'll see to the right, it would be every month remaining on the project. The dates are linked to the project details page, which is linked to the schedule. That's why it's important for the project manager to update the schedule when they update all the other modules on a monthly basis. In addition to that, because we're integrated with our financial system, you want that one truth, that one number across all, and for all reports out of the systems to match. I remember all the years of you ask 3 people the same question and you get 3 different answers. How much money do we have left on the project? What's remaining on my contract? So that integration helps support the one answer, one truth. And so in addition to updating schedule, budget, and so forth, the project manager is also reconciling with our financial system. And again, utilizing that data warehouse, that BI report, they're able to have up on one part of their screen and e-builder on the other part, and being able to just see if they're to the penny showing the actuals spent on the project. This cash flow is important because our finance system is the standard finance system. It's checks and balances and debits and credits, whereas our project management system allows us to do project cost accounting. And that's a tool we're able to project the cost on a monthly basis. Yeah. Because of, since COVID, how many times have we heard that? Due to COVID, our funding was decreased, obviously because of sales tax revenue, and then also ridership greatly decreased. And so tracking our expenses, our actuals, and our projected costs on a monthly basis and for the life of the project has become a lot more important to our CFO. And so these reports are starting to be utilized quite a bit more than pre-COVID, we were a little more cash flush, but just with the changing, we really do need to monitor this closely.
Wow. Moving on to, one of the topics is all the data. You guys are pioneers in building these processes and technology and processes and do that, but how do we connect? How do we connect with different peers? So everybody's talking about connected construction, connecting with the industry, connecting with operations. Where are you on this journey? So start with you, Linda.
Well, I remember the many years of having the manila folders being routed around the agency, and it could be multiple buildings, multiple floors of buildings. Oh my gosh, we'd have so many folders for review and approval being routed at the same time. You'd lose track of everything. So our project management system allows us, we as Pierce Transit, we provide user licenses to our contractors, our consultants, sometimes other local public agencies if they're a partner of ours on a project. We provide that license at no charge. And so having that transparency and that availability, that accessibility to every single document related to the project. I mean, the years of engineering submittals, having to go through the mail or hand carried from the project site into the owner's office, and then the Excel spreadsheets of tracking that. Now there's a whole submittal process, electronic process to keep it all contained in one area. Everybody can see the approvals. You can see the status of the submittal. Same with the request for information. So connecting the data with our Power BI, our financial system, our project management system, and that transparency. What we're finding are that we're finding a lot of consultants locally and a lot of contractors that are using electronic project management systems. And so getting them up to speed in it isn't taking that long. And then with the training and the user guides really helps. So we're also collecting a large amount of documents and collecting all of this data during the entire project life. Like I said, accessible, transparent to absolutely everybody, all the project team members and stakeholders.
Thank you. Amber, what's your position on connected construction?
It's funny when you hear the term, there are a lot of things that really come to mind, and Linda touched on quite a bit of them. One of them being the users. We're connected to our contractors, our consultants, and everybody within our agency. We're connected in so many ways by using this software system. So the abilities that it gives us has truly been remarkable, of connecting us all to that one central location. And the other thing that it really, really makes me think of is integrations, which has been a big part of what I've done here at Pierce Transit. We knew from the very beginning when we brought this PMIS system in that we wanted to integrate. We already knew there was going to be huge efficiencies gained going in the right direction with integrating really as much as we possibly could. So with that in mind, we really tried to harness that when we implemented our system. So knowing the capabilities of our finance system, trying to, flush out those fields and those processes really from the beginning. So right now we currently have our commitments, our commitment changes, our invoices, all of that is being processed in our PMIS, and that includes all the approvals, everything that's happening in the project management system. And all of that data is being pushed to our financial system. So we really, the only thing that our finance system is not our project accounting system. We're really able to keep it where it should be. Project cost accounting is very different from financials. So we're letting each system do what it's good at, but yet they're connected and they're driving that same information. So I probably don't even need to mention the time saving of not having to do manual double entry. Just that word double entry kind of gives you an idea of the time savings, not to mention the errors. It's really easy to get errors if you're doing double entry. So, and of course, as you saw earlier, eBuilder is connected to our data warehouse. as is our financial system, and all of that is getting updated nightly. So we're well on our journey of connected construction, in my opinion. We're really trying hard to do great things here.
Love it. So I think we'll jump on to as we're wrapping up for the Q&A, concluding this webinar. Linda, you've been in the industry for 50 years now.
No, not quite 50 yet. Close.
And you've seen a lot, and as an owner, you played various hats, for attendees and your colleagues. Where you are today, where you were before, and where you're going forward. Give us some. What's on your mind there, from a journey perspective?
Well, like I mentioned before, all the file folders being routed around the building. And years ago, we had a previous employer, we had a finance director, and he took a bunch of those manila file folders and he drew pigs, excuse me, on the outside of each folder. Each pig was colored a little different. It was called the pig. That was to route your invoices. And so we'd have to get all these invoices and pay estimates from the contractors and invoices from the consultants and so forth. And they would first come to the contract administrators, and we'd check all the compliance with the contract and hourly rates and everything you do, and then put our initials on it. We had a stamp, a routing stamp you had to put on it, and you put your initial and date. And then you put it in the interoffice mail to the next person and the next, and so forth. I don't even know how many pigs we had routing around at one time. So this is, the life has greatly changed. And then we implemented the PMIS at Pierce Transit about 6-8 months prior to COVID. And it was like overnight, March, whatever, of 2020. And we were told, okay, everybody go home. We had already been digitizing all of our project and contract documents. So to flip that switch to allow us to tell us to go home and telework was seamless for procurement, and mostly for project management office also. I mean, they still had to make their project visits and, be on site, but for procurement department, we were able to immediately do that and just function at 100%. And I always call it the Paper Reduction Act, not the Paper Elimination Act, because you're never going to get there, but the paper reduction was unbelievable, just like an overnight change. And then I think the project management office, the project managers are able to communicate so much quicker with their contractors. When you're talking about a change order proposal or a change order approval, reviewing the submittals, being electronic and everybody in the same system is just made a world of difference.
Wow. Amber, what's your take on that?
I kind of come back to the one place, one story, your transparency, really. I'll never forget it. I remember walking into Pierce Transit, and PMO and procurement work very closely together. So it made sense that we sat next to each other. We're in the same area of our building. So I would walk by PMO every time I needed to go by my desk, and I remember seeing yellow wallpaper on the inside of the cubicles. Everybody's cubicle was just covered in yellow. And it didn't make sense to me at the time. And I didn't ask any questions. I was new. I didn't want to look silly. I knew eventually I'd probably figure out what they were for. So they were the actual purchase orders. They were printouts of purchase orders. And I don't know why yellow was chosen. I guess they just liked yellow, not even a Pierce Transit color, but maybe we're supposed to be happy getting purchase orders. I don't know. Somebody came up with the idea. So once you got a contract in place, procurement would manually enter that information into the financial system. And that was your contract estimate to bid against it. That was your one purchase order. So when it came time to pay something, you would take a photocopy of it and you would manually write down, pen and paper times, a long time ago, you would manually write down the amount of that invoice, the invoice number, all this data on this photocopy. And that's how you did your drawdown. And you would turn that in with your invoice copy to accounting.
Yeah.
So, okay, all is well and good. Ooh, if there was a change order or amendment, it got really messy because now you've got multiple papers going on. But I still remember, you getting till the end of this contract and you're probably running low on money, or maybe something didn't get entered correctly for a change order, or you didn't use the right correct piece of paper. Maybe there wasn't enough money left, but you were showing enough money. So here you go, you run to your drive, you get your Excel spreadsheet, and you were going to go to battle with the finance system, and you have to go hash it out, and you're looking through your handwriting on this purchase order to try to figure out what's different between that and your finance system. So kind of a long story, but we don't have to do that anymore. Oh my gosh, to have it all at your fingertips right in front of you. We're all working from the same data. It's really the Cinderella story of Pierce Transit. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you the efficiency gain just with that one process. And people actually got to hang some pretty cool stuff on their cubicle walls other than yellow wallpaper. We actually got to see family pictures. Nice. Yeah, there was room for other stuff after that. So
thank you. Thank you. It's great, all of you here. We have the guest speakers' email addresses here. All of you can definitely reach out to them. They're very nice and they don't bite. So definitely reach out to them for questions. Let's do some Q&A. I got some interesting questions here. One of the things I think I like that too. What lessons do you have regarding project management implementations and subsequent building of dashboard using the PMIS data? Amber or Linda, want to take on that?
Linda, you want to go? I'll add.
Linda, you mute. Thanks, technical.
So I'll take over and Linda can add into mine. Sure. So please remind me, Sid, was it
what lessons learned as an owner do you have regarding the project management implementation, since you have done it now, and the subsequent building of these dashboards using the data in those systems? What lessons learned?
One of the hardest things when you don't have a system to going to a system, which is amazing, but you don't always know what you want. It's so hard when you walk into the room and you have this implementation team and they ask you, okay, well, what do you want? What do you need? I'm like, well, as a project manager, everybody asks you about cost and schedule. So I guess I need cost and schedule. Well, okay, that's good and all, but you're going to need more than that. It's really overwhelming when you have all these options at your fingertips and you don't even know where to go. Having a plan and an experienced implementation team is really going to help your success. Having a very interested project management team is going to help your success. People really need to get on board. If they aren't dedicated, and this goes throughout the life of the product, honestly, a system is only as good as the love, care, and feeding you give it. So it's only going to spit out good data if you're putting good data in. So you really have to have them see what's in it for them. How is this going to make their life easier? And a good implementation team. I was really fortunate in our case. I had been through, this would have been my third implementation. So having some background there, I could kind of help feed that, mentor, monitor, and feed in where that needed to be. So helping them flush out what data they needed to capture, what needed to be on dashboards, those KPIs, what's going to help them. You really need buy-in. You've got to get some support.
I think one thing I'd add to that is that I was fortunate years ago. I actually started with a relational database at PMIS back in 2012. And I was fortunate that I had a supervisor at the time that the very first question to me was, are you familiar and have you worked a lot with relational databases? The only thing I had worked with at that point was Access, and very lightly. So he sent me to a relational database class. And I think throughout the last 11 years And while I'm using PMIS, when we're trying to teach consultants, contractors, and other staff members, and like Amber said, when you get in the room and try to decide what data you want, I found that it's very difficult for most people to transfer their mindset from a flat file to a relational database, especially if they haven't worked with one before. So it is hard. You get them in the room, you say, we're going to build this workflow. They're thinking that you need every single piece of data re-entered at every step, because how does that connect? That's a simple example, but it's really, really important for people to understand how a relational database works when you're developing these dashboards and reports and just the data fields for each module within a system like this. So that's one of the things I've learned, and that's been a challenge.
Another question that I think it's quite different. So we've talked about cost, schedule, cash flow, capital planning today. What about project managers? What about the day-to-day activities? How does your organization, your team is supporting PMs from a data perspective, document management perspective? What advice you have there?
It's a complete system. It really is. Their day-to-day. In fact, it's the project manager's primary tool and procurement's primary tool on a daily basis. So all the other things, that are outside of the financial cash flow and so forth realm, such as your request for information from the contractor, change order proposals, change orders, submittals, all of your correspondence, your reports, studies, all of that are contained in the same system. And again, back to that transparency, and having those people as partners and users in the system greatly helps. But we've built workflows, so you can take a request for information from a contractor. Hey, you've spec'd out the 6-inch pipe for an 8-inch hole or something to that effect. And so you answer that, and on that RFI form, it says, does it impact cost, schedule, or both? And then that can be linked to a change order proposal. So when your answer back to the contractor through this RFI process, you're saying, please submit cost proposal. So they submit a change order proposal, which is linked to the RFI, which then the project manager starts the CO process. So just that collaboration and that accessibility for all parts of managing a project is very useful.
Nice. I'm going through the list. Oh, this one is interesting. So can you share some more practical benefits that your organization is getting from integration and prior, what challenges as an owner you're getting before the integration? So what practical benefits, any tangible outcomes, if you can share on top of your mind with the group here?
Kind of what I said earlier, the biggest benefit is the time saving. So not only is it just the time saving of the manual double entry we were having to do to appropriately draw down our contracts within the systems.
Sure.
Having that data sharing and using the exact same data really saves us time of, like I was saying, not having to go to battle with your Excel spreadsheets. So everybody using that same set of data from the same place really cuts out a lot of the questions. And honestly, it really also helps build trust. One of the things with implementing a system like this, especially like Linda said, if people hadn't used some kind of database like this, when you're seeing that same number across several systems, you're really starting to trust the process. So the obvious efficiencies gained is going to be that double entry, but you're not going to get any entry errors this way. They're minimized, and just going to that same set of data, there's no more arguments anymore. You're not getting the 3 different answers from the 3 different people.
An interesting question. So it's related to people. Owners people said, how have you used the data dashboards for forecasting? How are you influencing or collaborating with project managers managers to improve accuracy? How are you changing culture? That's how I'm reading it. It's a tough one, but I'd like to share what you think.
So our what has become a lot more important, another thing more important to our CFO is what is the projected total cost of the project? And then we have to look at that in relationship to what has been the approved budget for the project so far. So if you're doing a phased project or you have an unknown situation come up, there in our PMIS, there is in the cost modules, there's a forecasting or projecting cost. So the project manager can go in there and say, oh man, I know I'm going to have a quantity bust on this item, or I've hit a whole lot more unsuitable materials than I thought. I don't have the money in the approved budget, but I need to forecast this so that I can look at how much more money I need to go ask for, basically. And do we need to go back to the board and increase the capital project budget? Our board approves the budgets on a project level. So we're managing at a project level. We do build contingency and when we get the initial approval, but doesn't always cover what may come up during the course of the project. So you can forecast if you're forecasting over or under your current budget and then projecting what your additional costs will be, either costs that aren't committed yet, and so you reserve it against your current approved budget, or you can forecast costs that aren't committed, aren't in the budget. So you can slice and dice that any which way for dashboards and reporting to say, man, I'm going to need to, we have one board meeting a month. So you want to keep on top of that because you may need to get on the agenda for, say, the December board meeting to go ask for more money. So it gives you that ability to look forward to through the life of the project.
Thank you. I think we're about time. So again, thank you, our audience, wonderful audience, for asking great questions. And of course, big thank you to Linda and Amber for coming to this webinar and sharing their successes. I'm happy to know you both, and have a good weekend, all of you, and we'll see you later. Take care.
Thanks, Sid. I hope we hit the objective. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. I hope people found it valuable. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.